Completion Backward Principle by The Tubes. This is another one of those stories about an entire album. I tried so hard to find one song from this album to talk about, but I just couldn't decide. Each of the songs mentioned here really wouldn't fill out a whole story, and there are some that I think that are probably just a little too dark for a standalone story. So I tried something a little different. This album reminds me of, well, my parents. No, not my parents at their worst, but a little different. My parents like people. The album The Completion Backward Principle was in my mother's extensive music collection. Although the Tubes released many albums, I really can only remember my mom having this one record. This record had many songs on it that I liked, but they always struck different chords with me, so I picked a few here to talk about. The song Attack of the 50-Foot Woman brought up my love for monster movies. I remember watching Godzilla movies with my father, the black and white ones, not the ones with Matthew Broderick or the more recent, serious ones. I really loved that 1998 film. It felt like a big disaster movie. I mean, of course it did. The director was famous for Universal Soldier, Independence Day, and later, 2012. All the movies had amazing special effects, with large grand moments. But watching the 1998 movies, my eyes were astonished at what I was seeing. I mean, Ferris was still running around, but just now it looked really, really good. The fighter jet scenes were another high point for me in the movie. They seemed to happen and flow just like I had seen in my head when I was playing with my G.I. Joes. But when I remember the Attack of the 50-Foot Woman song, I think of the Japanese black and white series of films. That may have been the first time that I actually watched a subtitled movie. I mean, they weren't all subbed, though. I do recall watching them on network TV on a Sunday afternoon with my dad, so the dubbing was probably really, really bad. But I didn't care. For me, it was about the monsters and the technology, and my dad enjoyed the spectacle too. For some reason, I can't quite grasp, the song Sushi Girl reminds me of my mom. The song spoke of food and sounded smart to a kid who knew nothing of Japan back then. It's filled with Japanese-specific words and phrases. It sounded kind of exotic when I first heard it. Not like the Vapors song Turning Japanese, which seemed to be more afraid of the Japanese culture. This song seems to embrace it. That was something that I really liked. Not too sure why this brings back memory of my mom, though. I mean, I'd never eaten sushi with her. Actually, I'd never seen her eat sushi either. Mainly, it's because if I was going to know anybody when I was a child that would be comfortable with a new culture and way of life, it would have been my mom. Or maybe it's just because the song has the line, Sue Sue Sushi in it, and my mom's name was Sue. Mr. Hate is a song that hits me really hard. It doesn't bring up memories of a happy home or even life. None of the watching movies or fun culture feelings. It reminds me of revenge. I think that it was a song that I really felt the strength of desperation in. There's a line that says, never corner a frightened man. I felt the toughness of that line, that when pushed into a corner, I could fight back. The song talks about being wrongly accused of a crime, that nobody listened. I strongly felt that way when I was a kid. I was always the bad guy, at least to my folks. But this song kind of gave me the rage to fight back, to stand up for who I was and what I believed in, no matter the consequences. It also enforced in me a belief that you never really know anything about a person. That people shouldn't judge a book by its cover, no matter how good the cover art is. And that was something that I held on to back in high school. My enemies would never know how far I would go. And that gave me strength. It gave them a little bit of fear. No memories of my parents with this song, though. Not really. When I hear this song, even to this day, I am almost overcome with a quiet rage. The song that really kicks my memories into high gear is Talk Till You Later. That reminds me of my parents in love. I know it sounds a little weird, especially of this writer, but it's true. I have vivid memories of my dad giving my mom a kiss on the cheek and saying Tubes as he walked out the door. I remember wondering what the hell he was talking about. I guess I must have asked my mom about it or something, because soon I attached the song to the memory. It made me think of how cute it was that my parents, people who spent most of their interactions with me being cross and annoyed, were in love with each other, and that they had a pet catchphrase, Tubes. It was a simple, quick way of saying, I'll talk to you later. Those memories seem to be the only real time that I can ever remember seeing my mom and dad show any affection towards each other. Well, except when they were supporting each other in their fights with me. The softness of the whole thing just seemed very out of place. I vaguely recall my mom telling me that they had seen the band in a concert. I don't remember my parents ever having a life, so I don't know when they found the time, but apparently they did. It must have been a special moment for them, and I am pleased that they were able to find some time in the chaos that was my childhood to enjoy time together. I believe that simple act of innocence and intimacy reminds me that they were humans, not just enemies. The last song that gets my brain going is a song called Amnesia. It's about the confusion that comes from not knowing what really happened. As with Mr. Hate, it's a pretty dark song. But the darkness only comes my way when I actually listen to the song. The memories that are attached to it in my brain are, well, innocent. Like the previous song, it shows me that parents were quirky people. Just like the Tubes phrase that was popular with my parents, the song was also tied to that phrase. You see, after a little time, I began to notice that Tubes was said when someone wasn't actually leaving the apartment. The song's chorus is a desperate cry of what have I done to deserve this? It's a sad moment of trying to assign blame to all the crappy stuff that is happening to you. My parents would use this as a gentle way of asking why one was annoyed with the other. I think that the dual meaning for the simple word tubes is pretty adorable. And tubes was always said with importance and emphasis that allowed the other person to understand the meaning. Without that, my parents would have simply sounded insane. I really like this album as a whole. The writing of Mr. Hate and Amnesia really, really speaks to me. It conveyed the sadness and desperation that was rampant in my life back then. But somehow, they wrapped it all up in a couple of catchy songs. The Attack of the 50-Foot Woman makes me smile with warm memories of movies on a Sunday afternoon. It was on those Sundays that I had watched Witness for the Prosecution, 12 Angry Men, one of my favorite movies of all times, and Trilogy of Terror. The last movie scarred my brain for years to come. It was so scary. But when I think back to the movie, I can't really remember specifically what scared me. I mean, yes, the doll was terrifying. But with how scared I was, I figured there had to be something else. And while I have watched Witness for the Prosecution and 12 Angry Men several times over the years since, I have never rewatched Trilogy of Terror. Not once. The album art was another thing that drew me in. It was blue, with a cool logo on it. I didn't know it then, but after researching this story for a bit, I learned that the logo on the cover is actually made of PCV tubing. Odd how the little things are not noticed until decades later. Blue is my favorite color, and it has been since I was a little kid. And when I think of the actual shade of blue that I like, it's always, well, this shade. Not royal blue or baby blue, it's the Tubes blue. I think it's interesting how an entire album can stir up such diametrically opposing feelings. That's what happens when I listen to this album from start to finish. My emotional roller coaster is pretty dramatic, but it never lingers. The rage and depression that I feel from Amnesia and Mr. Hate are entirely gone by the time that Sushi Girl and Attack of the 50-Foot Woman begin to play. Thanks for listening to another story that fell out of my head. I really like the idea of an emotional whirlwind coming from an entire album. Different songs bringing up different meanings in the listener. Do you have any records that do that for you? What are they? Let me know in the comments below. And again, please like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time.